Moselle is a department in the east of France named after the river Moselle. History: Moselle is one of the original 83 departments created during the French Revolution on March 4, 1790. It was created from the former province of Lorraine. In 1793 France annexed the enclaves of Mandarin, Lixing-les ruling Montmestrat, and Créange, all possessions of princes of the Duchy of Luxembourg, a state of the Holy Roman Empire, and incorporated them into the Moselle département. By the Treaty of Paris of 1814, following the first defeat and abdication of Napoleon, France had to surrender almost all the territory it had conquered since 1792. In northeastern France, the treaty did not restore the 1792 borders, however, but defined a new frontier to put an end to the convoluted nature of the border, with all its enclaves and exclaves. As a result, France ceded the exclave of Tholy as well as a few communes near Sierck-les-Bains to Austria. On the other hand, the treaty confirmed the French annexations of 1793, and furthermore, the south of the Napoleonic département of Sarre was ceded to France, including the town of Labac, the city of Saarbrücken, and the rich coal basin nearby. France thus became a net beneficiary of the Treaty of Paris, all the new territories ceded to her being far larger and more strategic than the few territories ceded to Austria. All these new territories were incorporated into the Moselle department, and so Moselle had now a larger territory than ever since 1790. However, with the return of Napoleon and his final defeat at the Battle of Waterloo, the Treaty of Paris in November 1815 imposed much harsher conditions on France. Tholy and the communes around Sierck-les-Bains were still to be ceded as agreed in 1814, but the south of the Sarre department with Saarbrücken was withdrawn from France. In addition, France had to cede to Austria the area of Railingen as well as the strategic fort town of Saint-Louis and the territory around it. All territories and towns which France had controlled since the 17th century, and which formed part of the Moselle department since 1790. At the end of 1815, Austria transferred all these territories to Prussia, making for the first time a shared border for those two states. Thus, by the end of 1815, the Moselle department had finally the limits that it would keep until 1871. It was slightly smaller than at its creation in 1790, the incorporation of the Austrian enclaves not compensating for the loss of Saint-Louis, Railingen and Tholy, and the communes around Sierck-les-Bains. Between 1815 and 1871, the department had an area of 5,387 square kilometers. Its prefecture was Metz. It had 4 arrondissements: Metz, Brie, Sarreguemines, and Thionville. After the French defeat in the Franco-Prussian War of 1870–1871, almost all of the Moselle department, along with Alsace and portions of the Meurthe and Vosges departments, went to the German Empire by the Treaty of Frankfurt on the ground that most of the population in those areas spoke German dialects. Bismarck omitted only 1/5 of Moselle from annexation. The Moselle department ceased to exist on May 18, 1871, and the eastern 4/5 of Moselle was annexed to Germany, merged with the also German annexed eastern third of the Meurthe department into the German department of Lorraine. Based in Metz within the newly established imperial state of Alsace-Lorraine, France merged the remaining area of Brie with the truncated Meurthe department to create the new Meurthe-et-Moselle department with its prefecture at Nancy. In 1919, following the French victory in the First World War, Germany returned Alsace-Lorraine to France under the terms of the Treaty of Versailles. However, it was decided not to recreate the old separate departments of Meurthe and Moselle by reverting to the old department borders of before 1871. Instead, Meurthe-et-Moselle was left untouched, and the annexed part of Lorraine was reconstituted as the new department of Moselle. Thus, the Moselle department was reborn, but with quite different borders from those before 1871. Having lost the area of Brie, it had now gained the areas of Château-Salins and Sarrebourg, which before 1871 had formed one-third of the Meurthe department and which had been part of the Reichsland of Alsace-Lorraine since 1871. The new Moselle department now reached its current area of 6,216 square kilometers, larger than the old Moselle because the areas of Château-Salins and Sarrebourg were far larger than the area of Brie and Longwy. During World War II, Germany again annexed de facto Moselle from France. It became part of the GAU Westmark. Adolf Hitler considered Moselle and Alsace parts of Germany, and as a result the inhabitants were drafted into the German Wehrmacht. The United States Army liberated Moselle from the Third Reich in battle in 1944, and it was returned to French governance in 1945 with the same frontiers as in 1919. As a result of German aggression in World War II, the French government actively discouraged the Germanic heritage of the region, and the local German Lorraine Franconian dialects ceased to be used in the public realm. In recent years there has been a revival of the old dialects and distinct Franco-German culture of the region with the onset of open borders between France and Germany as members of the European Union's Schengen Treaty. Geography. Moselle is part of the current region of Alsace-Champagne-Ardenne-Lorraine and is surrounded by the French departments of Meurthe-et-Moselle and Bas-Rhin, as well as Germany and Luxembourg in the north. Parts of Moselle belong to Parc Naturel Régional de Lorraine. The following are the most important rivers: Moselle, Sarre, Seine. Demographics. The inhabitants of the department are called Mosellans in French. The population has remained relatively stable since World War II and now exceeds 1 million, located mostly in the urban area around Metz and along the river Moselle. If the Moselle department still existed in its limits of between 1815 to 1871, its population at the 1999 French census would have been 1,089,804 inhabitants. The current Moselle department, whose limits were set in 1919, had less population, with only 1,023,447 inhabitants. This is because the industrial area of Brie and Longwy, lost in 1871, is more populated than the rural areas of Château-Salins and Sarrebourg gained. In 1919, a significant minority of inhabitants of the department speak a Germanic dialect known as Platt-Lorraine or Lothringer Platt. Linguistically, Platt can be further subdivided into three varieties, going from east to west: Rhenish Franconian, Moselle Franconian, and Luxembourgish. Law. Moselle and Alsace to its east have their own laws in certain fields. The statutes in question date primarily from the period 1871 to 1919, when the area was part of the German Empire, with the return of Alsace-Lorraine to France in 1919. Many in central government assumed that the recovered territories would be subject to French law. Local resistance to a total acceptance of French law arose because some of Bismarck's reforms included strong protections for civil and social Rights. After much discussion and uncertainty, Paris accepted in 1924 that pre-existing German law would apply in certain fields, notably hunting, economic life, local government relationships, health insurance, and social rights. Many of the relevant statutes continue to be referred to in the original German, as they have never been formally translated. One major difference with French law is the absence of the formal separation between church and state. Several mainstream denominations of the Christian Church as well as the Jewish faith benefit from state funding, despite principles applied rigorously in the rest of France. Tourism.